Good evening. Had a couple tricky names in that reading, didn't I? We are looking at 3 John tonight. 3 John. If I remember correctly, this is the shortest book of the New Testament. If I'm wrong on that, call me out, but I believe that is correct. 3 John is written by the same author as 2 John. Whoever this happens to be, the elder, we believe it to be the Apostle John. I believe that it absolutely is. When you compare the Gospel of John with 1 John, 2 John, and 3 John, there are lots of similarities. I don't think there's any doubt this is most likely the same person, and I believe it's most likely John the Apostle. Recipient of this letter is a man named Gaius. So this is a personal letter. Now, we don't have a whole lot of personal letters. And here is one. It is John writing to a single person, Gaius. And Gaius may have been a leader of one of the house churches that were in or around Ephesus. We don't really know a whole lot about who he was, but might have been the father or husband of the household where the church met. We don't really know, but he was someone that John knew very well, and we'll see that in just a moment. 3 John, being a personal letter, it really revolves around 3 people. And if you notice in the reading right then, there were 3 names that were brought up. One is the recipient, Gaius, and the second is Diotrephes, and he is this troublemaking brother. And we'll look at what all he's doing in just a moment. And then there's Demetrius. Now, Demetrius, the letter's not said, it doesn't say a whole lot about him, but he was most likely the man who was delivering the letter from John to Gaius. And he gets commended by John at the end of the letter. So Gaius, what we find out in this letter is he showed hospitality to and helped support traveling teachers. If you remember in 2 John, a big part of what that book was about was do not support, do not show hospitality to, do not open your house or your house church open to these false teachers. Well, 3 John is about the very opposite. Open your house to true teachers, those who are truly teaching the gospel. And Gaius is one of those who was very, very good at doing that. He showed hospitality. He supported these missionary teachers. But Diotrephes, on the other hand, did not. He did not support any of these traveling teachers. And he didn't stop there with not helping out these traveling teachers, but he would even excommunicate anybody who wanted to help out these traveling teachers, these missionaries. And so he's not a very good guy, and we'll see that more as we go along. The purpose really of this letter, John wants to commend and also encourage Gaius. Commend him for being a good, faithful person, and encourage him to keep it up. Keep on showing hospitality to these traveling teachers. And also, he wants to encourage Gaius not to imitate Diotrephes. Don't be anything like this guy. Don't be anything like him. So let's go ahead and read the first 4 verses. And we're going to read through the book and pull out just a few things. 3 John, verses 1 through 4. The elder to the beloved Gaius, whom I love in truth. Beloved, I pray that in all respects you may prosper and be in good health, just as your soul prospers. For I was very glad when brethren came and testified to your truth, that is, how you are walking in truth. I have no greater joy than this, to hear of my children walking in the truth. We learn several things here. John loves Gaius. He calls him beloved more than once, but also he just comes out and says it. He loves him in the truth. He loves Gaius, and he prays that things will go well for Gaius. And we'll talk more about that at the end of this lesson. Also, Others have told John that Gaius walks, he lives in the truth. He's a faithful Christian. He lives faithfully for Jesus. And then John says, nothing brings me greater joy than to hear of my faithful children walking in faith. This gives us some indication that he was likely the one who led Gaius to Jesus. And now he's hearing about him walking in the faith, how he's continuing to walk in truth and be faithful to Jesus. He says, nothing brings me greater joy than that. So obviously what we know about Gaius here is he's a great man. He's a great man of faith, and John really, really loves this guy. Verse 5, Beloved, you are acting faithfully in whatever you accomplish for the brethren, and especially when they are strangers, and they have testified to your love before the church. You will do well to send them on their way in a manner worthy of God, for they went out for the sake of the name, accepting nothing from the Gentiles. Therefore we ought to support such men, so that we may be fellow workers with the truth. So Gaius has a reputation. He's got a reputation for showing hospitality. He's got a good name. A good name is worth a lot. And he's got a good name for showing hospitality to these traveling teachers. And John asks him to send them on their way in a manner worthy of God. Now, this idea of sending them on their way, that is to support them. To support them by meeting their needs until they leave. Being able to welcome them in and send them on their way. And this would be things like providing lodging for them, a place to stay as they're traveling, provide food for them, daily necessities such as that, and supporting them financially in whatever way you can. So this idea of hospitality is not just opening up your home, it's much grander than that. And so he encourages Gaius to continue to show this kind of hospitality. The thing about hospitality is, especially the first century Christians, it was crucial to Christian missionaries. They had to have this. They needed believers to be willing to help and support them as they go. And we even see this. This was kind of the idea that Jesus had of how this traveling ministry was going to work. In chapter 10 of Matthew, he sent out his disciples to go out and preach. And notice what he tells them in Matthew chapter 10, beginning in verse 9. Do not acquire gold or silver or copper for your money belts, or a bag for your journey, or even 2 coats or sandals or a staff, for the worker is worthy of his support. And whatever city or village you enter, inquire who is worthy in it, and stay at his house until you leave that city. So don't take all the things you would normally take when you're journeying somewhere. This sounds very much the opposite of what you would want to hear from someone. You'd want to bring lots of money and lots of clothing and everything that you're going to need, but Jesus says leave all that. Because when you go out and you preach, the idea is people are going to take care of you. You're worthy of being taken care of. When you bring the gospel to someone, it only makes sense that they would take care of you. You've delivered something that is so precious, that is so priceless. The least they can do is to help you along your way. And so this is the idea of hospitality. These missionary teachers, they're traveling for the sake of the name, it says. The sake of the name. Now this is a way of referring to Jesus. And they were traveling and preaching the gospel for Jesus' sake. This is what they're doing. And they accepted no help from Gentiles, from pagans, from unbelievers. The idea of the early church was that we don't need to go and collect money from unbelievers for our preaching. The church ought to provide and help out the church as they're doing this mission for Jesus. And so John says we need to help these guys. We need to support them in their work. And they need our support. And when we help, John says, we become fellow workers. We become helpers in spreading the gospel. I think that's huge. Here's the thing. We don't see anything about Gaius being a traveling preacher. We don't see anything about that. What we know about Gaius is that he helped traveling preachers. There's a lot of ways to participate in the spreading of the gospel. There's a lot of ways to participate in evangelism, in bringing people to Jesus, in bringing people to the kingdom. And this was something that Gaius could do. He could provide for those who were going out and preaching. And that's a big part of how we also can help. Provide whatever way we can to help the spreading of the gospel. This was something that was commendable about Gaius. Look at verse 9, going through verse 11. I wrote something to the church, but Diotrephes, who loves to be first among them, does not accept what we say. For this reason, if I come, I will call attention to his deeds, which he does, unjustly accusing us with wicked words. And not satisfied with this, he himself does not receive the brethren either. And he forbids those who desire to do so and puts them out of the church. Beloved, do not imitate what is evil, but what is good. The one who does good is of God. The one who does evil has not seen God. Diotrephes is a rough character. He's not a good guy. He wants to be first, it says. He wants to be the guy in charge. He wants to be the boss. He is a usurper of authority. When it comes to that house church that he's a part of, he wants to be the guy in charge, and he wants everyone to abide by what he says. That's a bad attitude. That's an attitude a Christian cannot have and be faithful to Jesus. In John, he says, I wrote to this church, but Diotrephes refuses to listen. He refuses to accept it. So we know that John's already written something. Maybe it's a prior letter that we've already looked at, or maybe it's a different letter. But regardless of that, he's written and says Diotrephes is not going to listen to it. He doesn't want anything to do with what I have to say. And he says, if I have a chance to come visit this house church, he is going to call out Diotrephes. He's going to let all of this be known for the wicked things that he's doing and the wicked things that he's saying, and for refusing to show hospitality. He refuses to show hospitality, where Gaius is the very opposite. He is very good. He's open to showing hospitality to those who are preaching the gospel. This guy's not. And not only that, like I said earlier, he goes so far to excommunicate anybody who wants to show hospitality. He kicks them out of the church, kicks them out of the house church where they're meeting. They're no longer allowed to gather there because they wanted to show hospitality to a traveling teacher. He wouldn't let it happen. So John tells Gaius not to imitate evil. And this is all pointing back to Diotrephes here. Don't imitate the evil that this man is practicing, but continue to do what's good. Those who do good belong to God. And the letter ends with John commending his messenger, Demetrius, verses 12 through 15. It says, Demetrius has received a good testimony from everyone and from the truth itself. And we add our testimony, and you know that our testimony is true. I had many things to write to you, but I am not willing to write them to you with pen and ink. But I hope to see you shortly, and we will speak face to face. Peace be to you. The friends greet you. Greet the friends by name. Now, there's some really good lessons we can learn from this little tiny letter. It's written from one person to another one person, but there's still some things that we can take from this. Lessons like use your means. Use what you have. Use what you can to support the spreading of the gospel. Show hospitality. Take care of the needs of our fellow Christians. Be humble. Don't try to usurp authority over a congregation. Don't be a type of person who's trying to get everyone else to listen to and abide by what you believe should be the case. Walk in truth and love one another like Gaius. Lots of things that we could look at, but really I just want to bring out a simple little thought. It's really not much of a lesson as it is something to think about. And I'm pulling it from John's prayer for Gaius. Look at verse 2. Verse 2. Notice what John said in this prayer. Beloved, I pray that in all respects you may prosper and be in good health, just as your soul prospers. He prayed for Gaius's life and Gaius's health to prosper. But notice what it says there. It's to prosper to the same extent that his soul prospers. Now, that word soul, it means life, really. But depending on the context, it can mean something deeper and something maybe a little bit more spiritual in nature. And I think that's what we're looking at here. I think essentially what John is saying is, may your wealth and may your health be as great as your walk with Jesus. This is the prayer. May your wealth and health be as great as your walk with Jesus. Now, here's the question that I want you to think about, and we'll end the lesson here in just a second. Would you want John saying that prayer for you? Think about that. May your wealth and your health be as great as your walk with Jesus. Because John here, he meant this as a blessing, because he knew Gaius was a faithful person. He knew that he had a close walk with Jesus. So to say, I hope that wealth and health is as great as your faithfulness and your walk with Jesus. I hope your life goes really well as your faith. This is my prayer for you. That was meant to be a blessing because Gaius is a faithful person. But what about you? What about me? Would this prayer here be a wonderful blessing if it was answered for you? Or would it be a horrible curse? If your bank account was matched to your faithfulness to Jesus, would you be just luxuriously rich, or would you be completely broke? If your bank account was matched to your faithfulness, how would you be doing financially? If your health was matched to your faithfulness to Jesus, would you be in perfect health, or would you be on your deathbed? See, this prayer right here, it can either be a wonderful prayer said to truly bless someone, or it can be a horrible curse upon someone. Again, John, of course, meant this as a blessing because he knew Gaius was faithful. But maybe we need to think about this a little bit. If God were to decide today He's going to make us as financially rich as we are rich in faith, where would we be? If God decided today that He was going to make all of us have the physical health that matches our spiritual health, where would we be? I want you to think about that. We're about to sing an invitation song. If you are not a believer in Jesus Christ, what I mean by believer is a follower, a disciple. If you have not given your life over to Jesus, initially, the very start of that is to die to yourself and be reborn into His kingdom as a citizen. You do that through baptism. If you've not been baptized into Jesus, tonight's the night to do it. There's much blessing in this life, but even greater blessings to come in the next in Christ. It's not an easy life, but it's worth every struggle. If you want that peace that Jesus offers, that hope, that salvation that Jesus offers, He offers it freely. If you are a Christian already, but you've not been faithful and you need to return to the Lord, maybe you realize that your bank account would be empty and you'd be extremely sick right now if God were to do what John prayed for. If you need to fix things tonight, let's pray with you. Let's help you. Let's encourage you. If you have any needs at all, you can make those known as we stand and sing.